Welcome to episode 247 of Empty the Bench, of the Empty the Bench podcast network. He's Tom Albano. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media for Empty the Bench at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. We are approaching close to 870 or 880. I have to check. And by the way, that's ironic because we're going to be talking about 880 later in the show. So make sure you listen to that later. If you don't want to watch us on the video side, listen to wherever you get your podcasts as well. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, YouTube Premium, wherever you get audio, you most likely will be able to find this podcast. So make sure you go and you listen on there. A lot to get into in this episode. Some football. We're about, what would you say? We're 5 or 6 days at least away or more from the NFL.
Actually, by the time when our episode comes out, we'll be 1 week exact.
Okay, so we're 1 week away from the NFL season. So we'll talk about a certain team that Tom doesn't like, and also
even though there's a sound effect of me, impersonating their owner.
Yeah, really. So we'll get into that.
Cowboy.
Yes. There's a double feature pretty much on the Cowboys as a whole.
Did you say
Cowboy? Yes. Also, the Steelers named their starter. This is really not a shock, but it's kind of a headline. The NBA files a motion to dismiss the WBD lawsuit. Again, not a surprise. A lot of baseball to get into in this episode as well. And we don't do this very often. We've done this before when some iconic sports stations have closed or media cuts have happened in the past. But a certain radio station, which we know locally in New York, which has been an iconic staple for almost 60 years, shuts its door due to money, but it's getting a sports station in the place of it. Yeah. So we will break that all down. But before we do anything, Empty the Bench and the network are presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. Now, we are working on some streams. We are waiting a lot to find out for NFL clearance and college football clearance to do those streams. We did some WNBA over last week.
Sunday night, about I think 7:30ish. We have the fantasy football discussion. We're going to do a draft.
Yeah, so we have our ETB network football forecast fantasy draft. So make sure you tune into that. I won't say there's a certain little teaser trophy that we're going to reveal on there. I saw the finished trophy the other day. It came out amazing. Unbelievable. It's a certain person I hate with all my heart, but
I'd say you're giving it away already, considering if anybody who watches the show is going to know who that is.
But I'm not saying exactly what it is, but this was done so well that I got mad just looking at it.
There will be a UFC 306 or a Noche UFC 2 Riyadh season, whatever they're calling
whatever
it.
You want to call it.
There will be a fight study in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, that card is September 14th. Just trying to figure out a headache of scheduling, not just with Playback, but with just the network in general, trying to figure out when that will be done.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that at the end, because let's just say from a year ago, we did not have this amount of content here at the network. Now we've grown exponentially, and there's more people, there's more shows, there's a lot. We have a college football show which starts this week, which I'm looking forward to. I think we have the perfect college people to host. So make sure you tune into Forever Power 5 on Friday. Again, we have our football forecast show, which starts on Saturday at noon. I think it's going to be the most amount of people we've had on that show.
Not this Saturday, next Saturday.
Next Saturday. But yes, that's the most amount of people that we've had on the show in the amount of...
At least tied for it. There's like 8 of us.
So, and we have a lot planned for that as well. All right. Since we're talking about football, let's get into the big news. CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys agree to a new 4-year, $136 million deal, the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. If I'm not mistaken, the guarantee was over $80 million, right? So
I believe so. So he got paid. He got his bag. It did not match JJ. It didn't match Justin Jefferson. 140 is still the highest. That
hey, CD, we're not paying you as much as he got. We're not. We're giving you your bag.
Yeah, we're gonna give you your bag. It's not gonna be 140, but we're gonna give you the bag. Because you know what? I do love you, CD. I love you.
I mean, I know we're being facetious, but that's how this whole contract negotiation went. I mean, the guy set out all the way before game 1 of the regular season. I mean, now, anyone is silly or is living under a rock to say that CeeDee Lamb was not training off-site somewhere to get ready for the season. I mean, is he sitting out? Yes. So obviously, is he going to be behind the playbook for the first game or two? He could be. We don't know that for sure, but he had to be paid. It would have caused a chain reaction for Dak if CeeDee Lamb did not get paid.
Right. So, I mean, there's a couple of things. I did a whole short video on this, and there's a couple of different things. Like this, you're right. CeeDee Lamb did need to get paid. I mean, the second half of the season, after the bye week last season, he surged up so much. And he's so young. And obviously, if you're Jerry Jones, you're going to want CeeDee Lamb to be one of your core, a piece of your core for the future. Obviously, you have the running back situation you have to play out. The Cowboys, if you saw the NFC preview I did with Zan, Pat, and Grant, we talked about their lines on defense and such. They lost a number of pieces that there's still questions about that, but you definitely need a CD as part of your future. Now the questions are going to be what happens to all these other receivers that we have questions about. What's going to happen with Dak Prescott? Let's start with the receiver end, because during that NFC show, Pat made a good point. I re-brought it up during the breaking news video I did on CD. Jamar Chase. Obviously, he was also looking for a bag. He came back on over the weekend. I'm going to reiterate my theory from both of those things.
I just want to say one thing, though, just because there was an update. Supposedly, he's out of practice again.
Okay. That's interesting.
I don't know if it has to do with any of the point you're going to make, but he's now officially out.
The reason that he can't come back to practice, my theory, again, this is a theory. This is no report. This is no anything. I'm just speculating, like Stephen A. Smith did last week. I am speculating that I'm wondering, because you mentioned, Nick, they may have the same agency representing.
I think they do. I'm trying to look it up right now.
I'm wondering if somebody close to Jamar got word that CD was not going to match Justin Jefferson. So it's like, okay, now I got to go back, because if CeeDee Lamb wasn't going to match Justin Jefferson, I think Jamar Chase and the people around him had to know he wasn't going to match Justin Jefferson either.
Right. I mean,
especially because there's the other half too, in that after this season, the Bengals are not going to be able to keep both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T's contract is up. They've used the tag on him. He's going to be a free agent. Jamar's looking to get the payday. This season is going to be the last with those two in Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's going to have to make a decision.
Right. I mean, the way I look at it is that they had to pay CD, number one, for the Cowboys' sake. They had to pay CD because they needed it. Jamar, and the Bengals, and again, I was pretty harsh on the AFC preview side of things. I think the chemistry is messed up in that locker room. I think there's a lot of issues in that locker room. Joe Burrow, even though he's healthier, I don't think he's 100% healthier by any means, but he's going to play with compensation of trying to avoid getting hit with all those issues.
Well, let me go back to Pat's theory, because I teased it before, so I should bring it up here. Like Pat had mentioned on the NFC preview, could we see a situation where, okay, 140, 136, is Chase's number going to be 4 years, 138?
Right. That makes sense. I hate this whole game of, like, I have to leapfrog you by 0.1.
I agree, but you know what? We see it with the quarterback too. We saw it a couple weeks ago with Tua and Jordan Love.
Right, and I get it. First of all, Jordan Love should not have been paid yet. That's my whole theory of...
You were defending him last week when I was saying he shouldn't have. Well, not last week, whenever.
I mean, no, I think he's a good quarterback. That's not my issue. I think he got paid too early, is my theory. That you got to let him prove himself, and then you pay the guy. Now we're going the opposite. We're in all sports. We're paying guys before they prove themselves, which is the problem.
All right. So, I mean, that's the CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that's the... Actually, no, there is one more receiver that we do have to talk about. And that is, as of the time we're recording this, Brandon Ayuk still has not gotten the pay. We still have no solution right now.
This is getting ridiculous.
Ayuk situation.
It's getting ridiculous. Just figure it out. And in my opinion, the Niners need to play ball and stop with the nonsense of the contract. You need him to win a Super Bowl.
I agree. I think they do. They do need him in order to win the Super Bowl. I think the difference of... Because I talked about it on the NFC preview. I said San Fran was my pick. That I think San Fran could go back to the Super Bowl, as the NFC representative. But I think the difference between that versus being just a playoff team and potentially, losing to Detroit in a rematch, whether it be in a divisional or conference championship, the difference might be Brandon Ayuk.
I mean, I heard what you guys said, that you think it could be anywhere from like 11 to 14 wins, depending if Ayuk is on the roster. I mean, I don't disagree. I think he is probably worth 3 wins more on this roster, because the offense can be a little more open and spread out with an Ayuk on one side.
Nick?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know what happened there.
Oh, I was done talking.
I said right.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay. I'm in my own world for a second. But basically what I'm saying is that they need to pay him. They need to figure it out. They need to figure out what they're doing. It almost feels like, even though the Niners are a competitive team, more than a competitive team, they really could be a Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah, I think they still can be, Nick. I think the thing is, could they still be without him? Potentially, but like you mentioned, it's less to do with it's less room to spread the ball around. And I was on about the idea of George Kittle. I didn't mention this on the NFC. I should have, but I thought George Kittle had a little bit of a down year last year. But it's hard to say a down year when you have so many options that you could throw the ball to. And don't forget, you also have the best running back in football, arguably the best player in football, in Christian McCaffrey.
Right. And I feel like McCaffrey would be compromised partially without Ayuk being there as another receiver option. Don't get me wrong. CMC is probably one of the best players in the NFL right now.
It's the idea of potentially running the running back into the ground, a la the Giants, what used to be the Giants with Saquon, or what could happen this season in Minnesota with Aaron Jones, now that Sam Darnold, your old friend, is their quarterback.
Right. And when I
said Sam Darnold, and I think Nick choked.
Yeah, a little bit. the way I look at the roster also, because I'm looking at like a Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy's going to have to be paid. I heard you mention that, by the way, during the NFC preview, that what's his market value? 20 million? I mean, he's not going to get the 35, 40 that other quarterbacks are going to get, but he's got to be paid
at minimum fair value, especially when
he's made high level games in the playoffs.
Exactly. And especially when you consider there could be a number of teams where after this season are going to be in on the quarterback market. Could the Jets if Rodgers retires? Could the Giants if they cut Danny Jones? Could the Cowboys if they don't agree with Dak Prescott? Like, there are teams that are going to be there. And that's actually the other thing. What the last angle to this. Now that CeeDee got his bag, what do you do if you are Dak Prescott? Do you try to work something with Jerry and the administration in the middle of the season to ensure that you stay at, or do you try to go for free agency at the risk where if you do have a down year, you may not get the kind of payday that you were thinking
of? That it's an interesting one. I mean, when you look at Dak, again, CeeDee makes him a better quarterback, and all the pieces, even though they lost a lot in the offseason, he needs to be paid. Now, would I pay him $60 million? Hell no, I would not pay him $60 million. It's not worth $60 million on the field. First of all, I don't get where that number way back yonder was even made up, that he's going to make $60 million a year. So that means you're going to have to give him like 4 or 5 years at $60 million. We're talking about $240 to $300 million.
Well, here's the whole thing about it, though. Like you were talking about, Tua got 4 years, 212, and then Jordan Love got like a little less than 10 million above him. If you're paying Jordan Love off that one good season, it feels like you have to have Dak at least meet that, if not exceed that.
Yeah, but
and that's just the quarterback market at this point. We've talked about it.
But wait a minute, what has Dak done in the playoffs?
What has Jordan Love done? He's had one good season.
He beat the Cowboys.
He did beat the Cowboys, yes. But my point being, Jordan Love got that bag off of one season. Dak has been there. This is going to be his 8th season? 9th season?
And he hasn't done shit. Nothing. He's been eliminated in the first round how many years?
And I will give you that. But, again, you've seen what the quarterback market... Nick, it was like maybe 5-6 years ago, Matt Ryan was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Which is crazy to think about, that he was highest paid. Joe Flacco was highest paid at one point after he won the Super Bowl.
Matt Stafford was the highest paid before he even won the Super Bowl with the Rams.
I mean, look at Kirk Cousins. That's the outlier I would use in quarterback contracts. This guy keeps getting $40 million a year, $50 million a year, and he can't win a damn playoff game.
But my point is, that means whoever is going to go after Dak next, whether it be he stays and works something out with Jerry and crew, or he goes somewhere else, maybe here to New York, someone's going to give him a back.
The thing is, if I'm the Cowboys, I wouldn't pay it. I just would not pay it. Like, it's not worth $60 million. Someone stupidly, desperately, a la New York Jets, if Aaron Rodgers retires, and I think it would be a much better option. I don't know if I would even pay $60 million for it. Would you pay $60 million? If you're the Giants and you don't have a quarterback, are you paying?
I don't know about $60 million, but then trying to use the baseball argument here, do you make it up in the years?
It depends how many years you want to give.
Well, I want to look up Dak's age now, because it's like, okay, do you at least give him a 5th year, a 6th year in order to get over that 200?
He's 31.
Million? He's 31. So do you give him then 5 or 6 years, 220, to get him towards the end of his career, so that way he meets exceeds the 220 that Love got, but less AAV?
And again, like, even though people and I'm still getting on the Packers for paying him after 1 year, but at least he made it further in the playoffs than Dak has ever made it.
And I think, you know what? Actually, let's pause here because let's go to our other topic, because I think the second topic actually does connect with the first topic and
I
connects
see
to the
it.
point that you said. So, Jerry, around the time that the CeeDee Lamb, he agreed to the CeeDee Lamb deal, he ends up doing this interview with Clarence E. Hill Jr. of DLLS. And he was asked about the idea, well, would you bring in, because Jerry basically runs the team, but he was asked, would you bring in a general manager or such? And here was his response, which is priceless. I will warn you, expletive language here, but it is priceless. Let's. Are you ready for this? Are you ready,
Yes.
Mr. Morgasen?
Yes.
I've done it all. So I have an ordinary amount of confidence that if anybody can figure out how to get this shit done, I can figure out how to get it done. I've been there every which way from Sunday, and I have busted my ass a bunch. So hell no, there's nobody that could fucking come in here and do all the contracts and be a GM any better than I can. I fucking have had hundreds of bad days. I'm emotional about it sometimes. Well, running this thing, that's who I want to make the last call. Now, when I can't fucking think, when I'm old and I can't even do it, I'm a long way from not being able to do it too. The reason I don't let somebody else be the GM is because I don't have anybody that I will let do it to actually do it right. And they're going to have to come to me because I know where it is that you're going to pay for it. How about them, Cowboy? How about them, Cowboy? Mind you, Jerry Jones is 81 years old.
I mean,
here's the okay, no, because here's the part of it, and I know Grant, and a couple of us talked about it on the NFC preview. This is a man who said back in February, after the Super Bowl, right before free agency was coming up, that he was all in on this season.
Bullshit.
And what did he do? He made 2 or 3 moves, one of them bringing back Ezekiel Elliott, and lost all those people and didn't compensate for it. Like, and I know, I think it was either Grant or Pat was very critical of the Cowboys draft. So, like that's part of the problem here when it comes to talking about paying Dak. What is Dak worth? What Dak can do on the field. Jerry did absolutely nothing in this offseason to help this team. Are they still the best team in the NFC East? Probably, because we have, you and I both agree, we have questions about Philadelphia after their collapse last season. But what has Jerry done to improve this team?
Nothing. I mean, he's done zero. Nothing. I mean, number one, the first thing that that I thought of, at least when I heard that statement, was
is a liar.
Because, like, what are you talking about? Like, Jerry's in Jerry's world, as they say all the time in Dallas. I mean, like, to tell me you're the best GM, you make a fucking fool out of yourself every time you speak to the media. Every time. Well, I'm going to do this. We're going to be the biggest brand in football. And how about them Cowboys? Like, it's literally just like, it's a brand exercise. And everyone has been saying this across all the networks, including ESPN, which has a love affair with the Dallas Cowboys, including First Take, basically say, you know what? Jerry cares more about the cha-ching than the winning of the rings.
Which is typical of an owner. But, Jerry will fight you tooth and nail to say, I care about those rings. But can we be real? After the offseason and the draft that they had, imagine they didn't work something out with CeeDee and he was gone. And imagine Dak left in this next offseason. The Cowboys would be a nothing franchise.
You're nothing. I mean, like I said, I don't think he's worth $60 million a year. I will go on the record and say Dak is not worth $60 million a year by any means necessary. But what do you do if you didn't have CeeDee? Well, first of all, would CeeDee demand out if Dak is gone next offseason if they don't agree to a deal?
I don't know.
Because who's
I
the
think
quarterback?
It would depend upon. That would be the question. Would they go after somebody like a Purdy? Would they draft somebody? I put that theory out there and you laughed about it, but that they would snipe the Giants on a quarterback in the draft if the Giants were to go after one. So I'm not going to put that against it.
And here's the
But
other
it does
issue
bring up a
too.
question.
But here's the other issue too you run into. So if let's say that behind closed doors, basically Dak and the Cowboys have basically said, we're not getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere during the season. We're going to play out the year, which means he's going to play. I would think he's going to play his ass off because he wants to get the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically what's going to happen is, hey, Jerry, F you. You didn't negotiate with me at all whatsoever. I'm out. I'll go to the Jets or the Giants or anybody.
Well, I was going to say the tough situation about that, playing that theory, Nick, is, again, look at their division. It's the Commanders, who are in the midst of a rebuild, the Giants, who might be one of the worst teams in the NFL this season, and the Philadelphia Eagles, which they can be good. I think they're still wildcard worthy, but you and I have questions about them after last season when they started 10-1 and then just they won one game the whole way and then nearly choked that one too. There are a lot of questions, and somehow, like I said on the preview, I still don't understand how Nick Sirianni kept his job after last season. But when you are in that, my point, Nick, is that when you're in that weak of a division, you're gonna get wins. When you're in that weak of a division, they're gonna make the playoffs. So it almost feels like I get it from what you assume Jerry's standpoint would be of the money, but at the same time, I think it's not just Jerry. Dak has the gun right back and saying, "Hey, I still won the division title." The fact that the Eagles, Giants, and Commanders are all weak is not Dak Prescott's fault.
Right. I mean, it's a tough one from the standpoint of, does Dak really want to put up with Jerry's shit much longer, or does he want to just hit the market? Maybe he takes a little bit less and he goes somewhere where there's not as much pressure to perform. Still going to get paid a lot of money. That's not the issue. But I don't know. This is a tough scenario.
I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of the Cowboys, not just during the season, but what happens in the next off season.
But what I will say is, he's not the best GM, in my opinion. Let your son run the team. That's how I would do it, and just let him handle
Nick,
stuff.
it reminds me of things, Nick, like here in New York, how sometimes we'll look at some Giant decisions. I mean, you saw Hard Knocks, and we're talking about, is this really a GM or head coach decision, or is Mara getting his hands involved? Same with your owner. Same in basketball, when we talked about for years, James Nolan trying to be very hands-on with the Knicks, but hands-off with the Rangers. Like, sometimes owners got to know not to get their hands dirty.
Right. They're a checkbook, essentially, what owners should be. Let your GM run the team. Let your scouts run this team. Let them do the job that they're there for, and don't stick your hand in the cookie jar where it doesn't belong.
Mm-hmm. All right. There is one more NFL story that we got to do. And, well, you know what? It's always fun that when, certain things happen, certain news items happen, I get the creative mind. Now, unfortunately, Broncos country, let's ride. Rest in peace, because of Russell Wilson not being on the Broncos anymore.
What?
Also, rest in peace to Broncos country, Zach's ride that I did the one time during the draft because Bo Nix is the starter. But there is something else here now.
Steeler Nation, 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 Steeler Nation.
All right, Steeler Nation, you're up. Russell Wilson is now officially the quarterback for the Steelers.
I mean, wow. When I first saw this, I was like, yes, we can still make fun of Russell Wilson even when he's not on the Broncos anymore.
What I'm assuming here is like that original report when he signed with the Steelers, as did Justin Fields getting moved to the Steelers. It's that the leash is very short. If the Steelers don't do much over the course of the first 4 games, the first month of the season, I would not be surprised if Justin Fields moved in.
So according to reports, when Wilson was hurt, Fields had 12 to 14 practices to really prove if he could be the starter. That just shows me that Justin Fields just didn't want it bad enough to be the starter. If he couldn't do it in 12 to 14 practices while Wilson was out with an injury, right?
Yes, but I guess the question is, who do the Steelers really believe in more? Or is the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh just a dumpster fire at this point?
It is a dumpster fire.
I mean, Russell Wilson, there's a lot of questions, although keep in mind something. Denver gave Kansas City a run for their money in the division late last year. And then they had those losses, but remember, towards the end of the season, the Broncos purposely benched him in order to cut him.
Well, that was contractual more than anything. Right. But but I think they just didn't want him anymore.
Justin Fields, I feel kind of bad for. Only because I'm seeing what Chicago. Do I think am I very high on him? No. I said that when he was first drafted in 2021. But I'm looking at what Chicago is doing with, Caleb Williams going out and getting Keenan Allen, going out and getting this piece and that piece. I'm like, you didn't really do that, when you drafted Justin Fields back then. Now, that was also a different regime, but it's like, come on. Like, that's a little bit of a bad shake. Am I high on Fields? No, but I think the Bears also kind of, and Zan and Grant both agreed with me on this. They did try to kind of treat him crappy a little bit.
I mean, but I don't think he's the same caliber player that Caleb Williams is by any stretch. I think Caleb Williams has more talent. I mean, they also had to make trades to get to the number 1 overall pick, so it cost them a lot of draft capital on top of it to get there.
And actually, it cost them It cost them when they tried to grab Fields too. Remember, the Giants got sniped on. I think it was Devonta Smith, and then the Giants made that trade with the Bears. Now the Giants ended up spending that draft pick on Kadarius Toney, so let's forget about that. But
hey, he got cut officially again.
I know, and he somehow still has a Super Bowl ring. Not even there.
That's what you get. But you know what? This is not surprising. I don't think Justin Fields is ever going to be a NFL starter. That's just he's not good enough to be an NFL starter.
I don't know. I feel like the Steelers are such a meh team. I think they're going to basically be, a 500 ball club again, that I really don't know how much Russell Wilson, I tend to believe that early report from months ago about the leash being like short. I don't think he has a long leash on, just because I don't know what this team really is. This team is mediocre in my mind at best.
But here's the question I have. So if, say he's playing like shit and like they're just not playing good ball, are you going to Justin Fields? Because if Justin Fields is the backup and you didn't trust him at the beginning of the year, his confidence is going to be low. Are you going to give him a chance?
I guess it's because as much as, you're saying that, I completely get your argument. I guess I'm not as low on Justin Fields as a backup as I am low on Justin Fields as a starter, if that makes any sense.
I could see that. I mean, but I don't know. This team's a mess.
My point is, if Russell's struggling, I agree. But if my point is, if Russell is struggling over the course of the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, throw him in for a game and see what's happening there. Because let's be real. You're not beating the Ravens for the division. You're not beating the Browns for the division or wild card spot. The Bengals, you and I have the disagreements about. But when you look at the Browns ahead of you, look at the Ravens ahead of you, and the Bengals are either even with you or you're kind of like tit for tat somewhere. The Steelers are not going anywhere. So use this. I know what the Pittsburgh is like. Oh, it's Super Bowl or bust all the time over there in Pittsburgh. But give Fields a game. If Russell plays as bad as he did his first season in Denver, give Fields a game and see what you got.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have to lose? You're not making a long stretch, like you just said. You're not making a playoff run. It'll be interesting to see if the consecutive streak of 500 or better is still in by the time this season ends.
I think there's a chance it could either end. I think my prediction was they somehow did, but I don't think 10-7 like last year. I think if they do, it's a 9-8 season. And I forget how many of the guys when we did the NFC preview, uh, it just came up. Obviously, the Steelers are an AFC team, but it just came up in random conversation. I forget if it was Grant or it might have been Grant. I think Grant said it's coming. He feels it's coming to an end.
Yeah, I would say they're probably a 500 team, from at least what I remember. But there's going to be some struggles with this team because they're not the old Steelers of
No.
with these classic veterans back in the day, the Hines Wards, the Jerome Bettis.
Right.
It's not those teams anymore.
And there's always some sort of drama. Think about it. That's why George Pickens is the wide receiver 1 now. They got Deontay Johnson out of there because Deontay was just such a headache.
That was so stupid, in my opinion. Like, they were actually building something halfway decent in Pittsburgh, and because he couldn't handle being a number 2, he had to make himself a prima donna, and then they had to trade him away. And now he's on a team that's probably going nowhere either.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions around Pittsburgh. We'll talk about it more as the season goes on. Let's jump over to the NBA for just a second. A little update to the story we talked about weeks ago. This whole drama over the television rights, streaming rights. The NBA had that deal with Amazon. WBD said, "Oh, our matching rights. Our clock was still available. We matched." The lawsuit going on, and now the NBA has filed a motion to dismiss. Now, obviously, it's a good update to have, Nick, but I consider this a non-story because, of course, the NBA was going to do this. But ultimately, my opinion on this is still what it was back then. Obviously, we have to let the legal system play out, and you look at the contracts. Was Warner Brothers matching rights deal, was it still in effect? If their clock to match the rights, that should be in the contract. If it somehow wasn't in the contract, that's bad contract writing. But that would basically determine what happens with the NBA then.
I mean, these lawyers for all sports and these TV networks are slick. And I mean that in the nicest, respectful way possible for a change where
the fine print.
Yes, where every lawyers from both sides, when they draw these contracts up, they put literally every little piece of information in there, every clause, every timing of a deal, pay schedule, everything. So if it was in the deal that there was a matching clause, then the NBA's out of luck in some regards. Now, I didn't realize that the NBA, like, if they say they have a value match, I didn't know the NBA could just say, well, that doesn't count as a match. We're moving on. I didn't know you could do that.
Well, isn't there a whole thing that you mentioned about, technically it's the value or whatever, that there was some sort of value that you were talking about.
You're talking about value match between like networks and digital and all that stuff. That's what you're talking about.
And there was something about, I think, I don't even remember, but it was weeks ago. You mentioned something about investors or the fund to, the pay up front.
Oh, you're talking about, well, that was everybody. Everyone who signed their deals, they had to put like the first 3, they had to put the first 3 or 3+ years away in escrow, essentially.
Escrow, that was it.
Yeah. So they had no choice. That was part of the NBA dealings that they put in the contracts to let people know things were going on. So basically, I don't know if that was the holdup in the deal. I have no idea if that was the holdup for the deal, but it could have been a lot of things. We don't know.
Yeah. But in my mind, this is a little bit of a non-story just because you knew the NBA was going to do this. You kind of knew that the NBA was going to try to motion to dismiss this lawsuit. But I don't think anything is going to happen with that. I don't think they're going to just dismiss it. I think they're going to have to look at that contract and see, was Warner Brothers right? Was their matching period still in effect before the NBA announced it? And if it was, that's not a good look on the NBA.
Now, here's the issue. This all could have been avoided if WBD just said earlier in the negotiation process, if they just said, oh, we want the NBA back, we'll take it.
That's the whole thing, though. But with Warner Brothers, you think about that quote from Zaslav. Actually, hold on. Let me put his banner up. The whole idea of, we don't need the NBA. We don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need it. We need it.
I mean, I think like I said probably over a month ago now, I probably said that the stock price probably dipped, knowing that the NBA was no longer going to be part of Warner Brothers Discovery. It was a huge thing. And you had Barkley come out and make his announcement about his contract, essentially saying, I'm staying with WBD, even though there's no NBA, and we want to create inside sports. And I'm like, what? Do I really want to hear Charles and Shaq and Kenny and those guys talking the NFL or Major League Baseball? Not really. But again, this was a 28-page lawsuit, by the way. 28 pages.
I have no time to read all 28 pages. I have other things I have to read.
Yeah. So again, you're right, technically, that this is a non-story, but it's significant from the standpoint of that the NBA will do anything to keep their greedy bottom line as greedy as possible, so they don't have to do anything. If anything, this is actually WBD is forcing them to pay money out of their pocket to fight a lawsuit. So maybe they feel better in the long run, or in the short term, I should say, but they don't feel better in the long run. So,
right, they're still going to lose their product if they lose this case anyway.
Yeah, so it is what it is.
All right. Rapid fire baseball time. We have plenty of baseball stories to talk about. Some major headlines here. Starting off, Joey Votto, one of the biggest veterans of this game, announces his retirement. He was not in the major leagues this season. He actually had signed, I think, a minor league contract with Toronto. But ultimately, he was brutally honest. He was like, I'm washed. And Joey Votto is just, I guess, one of the more entertaining kind of people. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the clips of him interacting with fans. I know he was interacting. The old clip resurfaced of him interacting with a heckler. And the heckler was like, when was the last time you were good? And Votto responded, the last time you were thin.
Oh, Jesus. That's great, actually. And I don't know if you saw the clip the other day with him and the kid or whatever that was behind the netting. He's really good about that. People give him shit because of his attitude sometimes when he's on the field, but every time he comes up on the on-deck circle, he always, even on the away games, he will find a kid sitting right by the batting circle and either give them a high five, or sometimes he throws the batting gloves into the kid. He actually is a good guy.
Very good guy. Spent 16 seasons in the bigs, all with the Cincinnati Reds. Like I said, this season didn't count because, this season didn't really count because he was only in the minor leagues, even though he was in the Blue Jays organization. 6-time All-Star, was the NL MVP in 2010. Beat out Albert Pujols for that. I remember that. Hank Aaron Award in 2010 as well. Won a Gold Glove in 2011. He ends his career with a .294 batting average, 2,135 hits, 356 home runs, and 1,144 RBIs. First in career walks, third in on-base percentage, and fourth in on-base plus percentage among all active players at the time of his retirement. He is only one of two Cincinnati Reds with 300 home runs, 1,000 plus RBIs, and 2,000 hits in franchise history.
Griffey?
The other, I'm not 100% certain if it was Griffey or Rose. I would assume Griffey.
I think, Griffey has 600 and whatever career home runs. I don't know how many of those were with the Seattle and how many of those were the Reds, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of that's with the Reds, right? Not just career home runs.
With the Reds. No,
Yeah.
those last few stats were with the Reds.
I mean, I'll look that up as we're talking, but the guy had a really good career. Unfortunately, he was with a team that was never really going anywhere, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he did,
No,
actually
I know.
he didn't have 300 home runs with the Reds. He actually had 210.
So then it was Rose, I would assume.
It's probably Rose. So,
Okay. But the thing is, if you're up there, Joey Votto was the face of the Reds for the 2010s, and Joey Votto, if you're putting his numbers up there with Pete Rose, here's what that means. That means he's going into whatever Hall of Fame that the Reds have. His number's probably getting retired within the next season or two by Cincinnati. Would I consider him for Cooperstown? You know what? He's right near the 300 batting average, and you know how the Hall of Fame is today. I would say first, second, or third ballot, he would probably end up getting in.
yeah, I think so. By the way, so I just looked up the numbers. So it's Johnny Bench, Joey Votto, and Frank Robinson all have 300 plus home runs with the Reds.
Okay, so actually
that's significant.
It might. Right. So actually, it might not have been either Griffey or Rose. It might have been Bench or Robinson then.
Well, right. So Bench has 389. He's all time with the Reds. Then it's Votto with 356 and Frank Robinson with 324.
How many hits does Bench have with the Reds?
2048.
I think it's Bench. How many does Robinson have?
1,673 hits.
Johnny Bench. So it's Johnny Bench and Joey Votto.
So Joey Votto actually is the all-time hits leader for the organization with 2,135. So
yeah,
I don't know. Do you see him as a Hall of Fame? His numbers are kind of below.
But he's right near the 300 batting average too. Like I said, knowing how the Hall of Fame is today, I don't know about first ballot. Probably second, third, or fourth.
He doesn't have a blemish, considering in the steroid era, no blemishes. But his numbers are like right below that threshold of Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Look, there's probably gonna end up being a weak class. You know how things are, where you look at the class and you say it's weak. In one of those years, I could see Votto getting in.
Right. And like I said, so what are the thresholds? So 400 home runs, 2,000 hits, or really 3,000 hits.
3,000 hits.
Batting average of 300, which he's close to. He's got over 2,100 hits. He's hitting, like you said, he's 294 batting average. He's a good guy, but that really doesn't matter.
Right. But like I said, if there's an opportunity for a weak Hall of Fame class where most of the voters will go towards whoever is strongest, there's a chance that I could see Votto getting in there. Like I said, maybe not first, second, third, fourth. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the media will be kinder to him than most people. Yeah. Because, again, no blemishes in the steroid era, no blemishes. And we haven't heard his name very much except for his aggressiveness on the field, but that's where I would want him to be aggressive, is on the field. That's where it's meant to be.
Yeah. So it's a little salute there to Joey Votto. We'll send a salute now to somebody who's still currently actively playing, in Shohei Ohtani, joining the 40-40 club in spectacular fashion with a walk-off grand slam to win a game for the Dodgers last weekend. That's sometimes, Nick, baseball creates moments that Hollywood can't even perfect, and this is one of them.
Even though, ironically, it was in Hollywood, in Los Angeles.
It is Hollywood.
Looking at this guy's incredible. I mean, this guy. I mean, I'm still going to be mad about the Rookie of the Year award. I know I'm going all the way back to like 2010 or whatever, but where people gave. Was it 2018?
Yeah, Andujar.
I'm still mad about that because I think Andahar had a better year than Ohtani, and I don't think the pitching stats should have counted because it wasn't a fair exchange of numbers.
But I mean, that's in the past, and let's be real. Shohei Ohtani, his first few seasons, we had questions about it, but Shohei Ohtani has blossomed into probably the best player in baseball right now. I don't think it's any question. I mean, Bryce Harper may have something to say on the NL end, Bobby Witt may have something to say on the AL end, but I don't think there's any question right now. The MVPs this season are going to be Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, both pulling up spectacular numbers. Judge going on the chase for, to maybe break the home run record for the AL that he had a couple of years ago. And Nick, there's still a 1 month in this season left. Shohei Ohtani has the potential where he could get to the 50-50 club, which nobody has done.
I mean, I can't think of many. I know Soriano back in the day was one of those guys that they were talking about as a 40-40 type, maybe even a 50-50, but that never happened. I mean, this guy's incredible. He's going to win a bunch of MVPs with the Dodgers. Now, are there going to be voters over the years that are going to say you have it too easy being in the Dodgers organization? We're going to give it to someone who actually earned their keep with the team. We've seen that happen many times, a la LeBron James in the NBA, who sometimes doesn't get an MVP because they think it's too easy for him. But this guy is just such an incredible pace that he could earn the MVP almost every year at this rate. Now, can he stay healthy and pitch is a whole nother scenario.
Nick, might, I think he kind of might end up taking the old Mike Trout spot from the last decade or so, where if you need a default MVP, you go to him. And honestly, because this has been a topic that's been talked about on MLB Twitter, on MLB Network, it's this idea with Judge and Ohtani, and you're looking at the legendary paces that they're doing. And it's the idea of, does it any of that matter if they're not hoisting a pennant, let alone winning a ring? I know Derek Jeter had the comment about Aaron Judge locally here in New York about that. But look, let's celebrate some of these athletes when they are putting up the legendary accomplishments that we rarely ever see. I mean, Judge is a beast of a player in his own right, getting the amount of home runs that he does while maintaining, by the way, it's not like he's a home run or strikeout hitter. It's Aaron Judge is getting all these home runs while maintaining a 300 plus batting average. Same for Juan Soto. Shohei Ohtani, I don't know his batting average off the top of my head, but he's pulling off incredible numbers. Let's celebrate these guys while we have them and celebrate their accomplishments. Does it stink? Does it stink when you don't win a ring or hoist a pennant? Absolutely. Does it take a little wind out of the sails of the season? A little bit. But it's not like you can't say it never happened.
So he's batting .294 also.
Okay, so put him right there, not less than 2, nearly.
So he's in the top 15 of 2014 stats, everything. So 294, he's 14th in Major League Baseball. Home runs, 41, second. 94 RBIs, tied for 6th, and his OPS is 994, which is 4th. So it's an incredible year that this man is having, and people are going to be annoyed, yes, because then he's going to come back and he's going to pitch, I think, next year, hopefully, and that's just going to be even more dangerous. Imagine him being able to pitch on top of being able to hit like this. Now, I think eventually what's going to happen is one side eventually will suffer because it's hard to do this for a whole career. In my opinion, he should really just be a hitter and focus on the hitting, and because he can make he got the $700 million contract already, but like the guy could rake and have an incredible career. He could break all-time home run records if he focused on being a hitter and not pitched.
I mean, Nick, you talk about the days of the old, I'd say days of old, that was our childhood, when you had the likes of Bonds and Sosa and McGuire competing with one another. I mean, here, this generation, it's Judge, it's Ohtani, it's Soto. Like, this is, let's appreciate the talent while we have it.
Yeah, and What really frustrates me, and I wasn't going to go into it, but we're talking about it, so I'll bring it up, which is basically the whole argument of like, and I hear it on sports talk radio all day, every day. Well, Aaron Judge's year is not impressive unless the Yankees make a run to the World Series and win it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean the season's not impressive?
Aaron Judge is not the manager. Aaron Judge is not the general manager. Shohei Ohtani is not the manager, GM of his team. They can only do so much.
But I mean, like, Aaron Judge could break his home run record again. I mean, like,
I know. To say it's not impressive is complete idiocy.
It's living under a rock. And people are saying, well... And
to say Shohei Ohtani doing this, joining the 40 for 40 club with the Grand Slam, and maybe even joining the 50-50 club, being the first to do 50-50, is not impressive because the Dodgers, let's say, losing the division series again, is idiocy.
Now, I haven't heard it as much for the Ohtani side. Like, everyone's saying, oh, it's incredible, blah, 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 blah. But
that might be, I know where you're going with that. That might be because we're in New York.
No, I'm hearing it nationally, too, where basically, like, oh, well, Aaron Judge might hit 63 home runs and break the AL record. And then you're getting all the old-fashioned Major League Baseball fans who are saying, well, that's not breaking a record. Like the 63 is not a big record.
Okay. So, because they don't win, or let's say the Yankees end up losing the division to the Orioles somehow. I don't want to go there, but, okay, so that's Aaron Judge's fault that he was removed for like that month or month and a half where Stanton was hurt, that he was removed from the field because they wanted to put Judge in as the DH. That's his fault. Judge doesn't take the mound every 5 days. Judge isn't the one making the decision to put Jose Trevino in for Austin Wells. Judge, all these players, Nick, what did we always used to say? One man a team does not make.
It's true.
One man, not only in that regard of one man can't just carry his team, especially in a sport like baseball, where you can't, unless you're Shohei Ohtani, you can't hit and pitch. And if, in the case of Shohei Ohtani, he only takes the bump every 5 days. And who knows what's going to happen considering the whole innings pitch thing that Major League Baseball is talking about.
That's so stupid in my opinion.
But that's my point is that, Judge is not playing everywhere. Judge and Ohtani, they're not playing everywhere else on the field. They're not the manager making decisions. They can be in the GM and manager's ear, but ultimately the manager and the GMs have the final say. The owners have the final say. So you can't put everything, if there is a lack of success, if the Dodgers don't win the World Series, the Dodgers lose in the first round again, if the Yankees fall short of a World Series appearance, you can't put all of that on those two.
You can't. It's ridiculous. I mean, I know what people are going to say if the Dodgers don't win with all the embarrassment of riches quote that they used.
But both things can be true. You can have Shohei Ohtani having an impressive year of all years and the Dodgers themselves being a failure. It's like the class average at that point. It's like the class average being, a 60, a 70, and Shohei Ohtani's the one who got the 100 A+ mark.
Or to put it in more layman's terms, since you're a teacher, it's the curve in the class where everybody's doing terrible, and then you get the one person, so you have to curve the whole thing up to meet everybody's. It's the same thing. Like this whole argument of, well, I'm bored. That's the word I was hearing a lot. Where I'm bored, I'm not going to watch Aaron Judge put on the show because the Yankees are going to lose in the playoffs. It's the crystal ball theory is what I call it. Where, oh, well, who cares if he has a great season? They're going to lose anyway. Okay. One, you don't know that.
Well, one, you don't know that. But even if they do, guess what? His name's still going to be on the MVP trophy. You can't take that away.
Now, I guess the one argument people are making is that like individual awards are great, but they're not.
But that's, Nick, that's a topic that does not go specific to one team. That goes to all teams, all players, all sport. That's just a sports topic.
Agreed. And I understand people making that argument if you're saying, oh, well, he won an MVP, but what did the whole team do? I get that argument, but at the same time, if this guy hit 63 home runs, and I'm trying to look up his stats for the year because they're incredible, but oh, here it is. Listen to these stats and tell me they're not impressive, okay? He's hitting 333 right now. 333. He's second in Major League Baseball. I don't know who's leading the
Bobby
league.
Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr.
Okay, so he's first in home runs with 51.
He's first in all offensive categories, basically, except
for average.
Yeah.
So 51 home runs, 122 RBIs. It's August still as we're recording this. Okay? And his OPS is 1,200.
Right. And we just read off Shohei Ohtani's numbers before. And again, you just said it. It's August. There's a very realistic chance Ohtani does hit 50 bombs. There's a realistic chance Shohei Ohtani does become the first MLB player to do the 50-50.
The one thing I do worry about is because the Yankees have a decent-ish lead going into September for best record, like, are you going to see him sit games? Possibly. I don't know.
No, but I disagree because the Orioles, Nick, the Orioles are going to have 4 games against the White Sox in September. And knowing how the Yankees play against some of these weaker teams, their August was not all that impressive as it could have been. So I don't think you're going to. You're in the midst of a playoff push.
I mean, if you're going to lose to teams like the Washington Nationals, I mean, I can't help you. Like, I don't know. But the whole argument is silly. Right. These two guys are going to win the MVP, and it's not even close.
All right. Meanwhile, on the other side of the spectrum for baseball, the Chicago White Sox, the fastest team to 100 losses since 1916. Nick, at the time we're recording this, they have lost 101 games. Again, we're not out of August yet.
You suck.
I mean, they're so bad. Like, it's not. I saw a a John Heyman tweet, which you and I were laughing about earlier, where he said they're 35 and a half games out of 4th place.
Out of fourth place. And Nick, you saw what happened the other day with the Texas White Sox game, right? Where they went 4 pitches before the game got suspended. First of all, shame on Major League Baseball and another umpire blunder when it comes to this 2024 season. How do you let that happen? That's absolutely inexcusable. And you waste the start of Garrett Crochet and whoever was on the mound for the Rangers. But second of all, I mean, even God doesn't want the White Sox playing. Even God is tired of them playing.
He's just like, I'm done. See you later. I'm tired of this shit. I don't want to see crappy baseball anymore. Like, to God, it's basically
emotional damage.
Like, seriously, like,
it's unreal. And Nick, I'm gonna be very honest. They could have a miracle September and avoid the tying or breaking the Mets 120 loss season. I still think the White Sox are probably the worst team in Major League Baseball history. Because at least what you can say, because LaGracca was making this defense the other day, and I kind of side with that 1962 Mets, that was their first season. That was an expansion season. Obviously, in most cases with an expansion team, especially in baseball, you're going to go through growing pains. I mean, it's very rare when you see something like, what the Vegas Golden Knights did, reaching the Stanley Cup final in their first season. There's always some growing pain. But eventually, you do get to the achievements that they did. The Diamondbacks won the World Series in their 4th season. The Marlins won it in their 5th season. The Mets, the 62 Mets had the 120 losses, but then what happened 7 years later? They won the World Series. The White Sox, again, were supposed to be, they were in the basement. 20 years ago, they were the World Series champions. 10 years ago, they were going towards the basement. And then reiterating that point I said a couple weeks ago, they were getting all that talent. Moncada, Tim Anderson. They were supposed to be the dominant force of the AL Central in this decade. And look where they are. So
you mean
Mets,
a shit show?
Whether they break the Mets record or not aside, this is the worst team, I think, in Major League Baseball history.
It's not even a question. I mean, this team is such a shit show. that basically they become a walking embarrassment and I feel bad for like Hawk Harrelson who has to call these games. And like, can you imagine? Like, I don't know, because he's not talking about home runs or putting them on the board. I guess when he's referring to putting on the board, he's saying put the L's on the board for the amount of losses they've had.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be, he's probably saying, and this one is over a lot more than he's saying putting it on the board.
It's true. I mean, this team is so bad. Like, they're going to have to fire everybody. They're going to have to blow up the roster. I mean,
Nick, they got eliminated from the playoff contention in August.
That's bad. That's early. Wow.
It's the early, I think by like somewhere between 1 and 4 days, they set the earliest calendar-wise in Major League Baseball history.
Yeah, that's quite a defense right there.
Nick, and Ryan was making this point the other week on Hitting for the Cycle. Do you remember 6 years ago when we were laughing at the Orioles of 2018? And we were thinking, we may not, we saw the Orioles of 2018, the Tigers of 2003, and we're like, we may not see a worse team in our lifetime of those two. And I think the White Sox of 2024 have reached that point.
You mean they're the pinnacle of bad teams?
Yep.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, like, we saw the Cubs be shit for many decades, and then they won a World Series. They got back to the top. By the way, ironically, with Theo Epstein, who killed one jinx with the Red Sox. You know what? I have an idea.
Theo Epstein is the general manager of the White Sox?
Yes. Theo Epstein is the general manager of the White Sox. They killed one curse, or two curses he killed. Go kill another one now.
I mean, technically, the White Sox killed their own curse in 2005, but in terms of trying to take them, from this to, I mean, if there is a person I trust to do that, it is probably Theo.
That's what I mean. I mean, like I said, he's already helped one side of Chicago. Go help the other side of Chicago.
Hey, there's a little fun baseball fact as we're getting to the closing stage here. So Danny Jansen apparently made history the other day by apparently playing for both teams in the same game. How is this possible? Because a game was suspended due to, I think it was due to rain. So the game ended up being resumed at some point later this season. I think it was days ago. Neither manager would basically take him out of the starting lineup. So I think he started on the Blue Jays side, went to the Red Sox side. So he had to be subbed out of the game on the Blue Jays end. And he was pinched hit. Yeah. And then he was basically pinched into the game from the Red Sox end. So
it was the most bizarre. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life, where basically, like you said, he started with, who did he start with, the Red Sox or the Blue Jays?
I think it was the Blue Jays.
He started with the Blue Jays. He's on the Red Sox now. And he was up at the plate when the delayed game happened. So
he had to be pinch hit for technically in the middle of an at-bat.
He was catching technically his own at-bat, which they had to which the Blue Jays had to put a pinch hitter for. Because again, not with the team anymore. So he technically was catching his own at-bat.
Imagine being a scorer. Imagine being an MLB scorer and seeing that crap.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those like where you'll keep like an awkward stat you'll keep forever, basically. And like, do you remember on this day where Danny Jansen was technically on the field for both teams at the same time?
Something happened, I think, in the NBA. Secret Basis talked about it about 20 or so years ago, where there was somebody who played for both teams. I think Philadelphia was one of the teams. I don't remember. I don't remember if it was the Nets or somebody else that the same player played in both games, because I think a referee screwed up, and it was a very rare case where a protest had happened and was won. So the game, the rest of the game had to be replayed. But by the time the game was replayed, this player had gone from one side to the other in a trade. So they had to resume the game. He had to go for one team, and then when the next game happened, he switched locker rooms, basically.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up myself to see if I can find it. It definitely was the Sixers. I'm seeing that. It looks like Sixers Celtics, at least from what I found, but I don't know. That I feel like that would be harder though,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
a player who probably, probably, I forget the name of the player, but by the way, actually, while I'm still looking that up, one more little fun fact. So, also in this game were two Blue Jays that were playing. They were playing. They're on the roster right now, but at the time of the original game, Nick, they were still in the minors. So there are two Blue Jays players, I forget their names, who actually are now playing a game before they even made their official major league debut.
Oh my god.
Don't you love sports?
That's where's the banner? Because I need it right now. Where's the banner? Do we have the banner? Nope, that's the wrong one.
Are you talking about good old? Hold on. You're talking about
Yeah,
this one?
that one. Yeah, thank you. That's the one I'm looking for because again, we've had more issues with games. I thought before 4.5 innings, you're supposed to start the game over again because then it's not an official game. Now we're just delaying games and say, "Oh, we'll return to them when we feel like it." Like, what's that all about?
Oh, it was Ralph Sampson, the Nets and Sixers.
The name sounds familiar, but
The Nets,
I don't know.
A play. Somebody got assessed a third technical. Somebody got assessed a third technical foul, and it was a case where they protested the game, the Nets, and it was actually won, so they had to replay the game. But in the intervening months, the two sides make a trade. Sampson gets swapped to the other side, so when they play the next game, they have to resume and end the first game first before they do the second. So he goes from one locker room, and then in the very next game, the actual game that has to be played on that day, he goes to the other.
That's crazy. Wow. I mean, I don't know. We've seen weird things happen before.
Yeah. All right. Last story here. Just a little tribute here to WCBS Radio 880. Obviously a local station here in New York, but it was primarily a news station, but did have sports attachments to it. At one point was the Yankees home. It was the Mets home at the time of its closure, and now ESPN Radio here in New York is jumping from 10:50 a.m. over to 8:80 a.m. as part of its little thing. Because now the 94.7, Nick, isn't that supposed to go away soon?
98.7. Yeah.
98.7. Isn't that supposed to go away soon?
Yeah, actually it goes away on the 31st. So not to get too nerdy of this, but what they call it is an LMA between competitors, by the way, number one. So Odyssey, which is the direct competitor to ESPN, is what they call a lease management agreement, an LMA, to allow 98.7, which is now, or 1050, which is now 880, to air its ESPN local New York programming on here.
We should clarify, Odyssey was the owner of WCBS.
Yes, right. So they were the owner. They basically decided, you know what? We're going to, and by the way, the station billed like $30 million last year, and for some reason they're going away from it. I don't understand why. I don't get into the business aspect of it, but iconic station, 57 years on the air. I'm sure like when we were in the cars and we were trying to figure out traffic, if we're sitting in traffic, or weather for the games, if we were going to the games, or
right.
Unfortunately,
I'll tell my
story.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'll tell my story that thinking of WCBS 880 was when the Yankees were on it, and I would be coming back from the minor league games when we had the minor league team here on Staten Island, and the Yankees game was still either in the middle or close to the end. So I would listen to John and Susan on WCBS. That was really my exposure to Yankee on the radio.
Yeah, and over the years they've had some other things too. They had Rutgers basketball on 880.
Yeah.
I think the football was always on FAN, but they're now moving Rutgers basketball over to the Fan. Now with WCBS no longer having those rights. They're keeping the Mets on 880.
Right. Well, we talked about it, I think, earlier this year that the Jets, they're moving to a music station. Q1043 here in New York is going to air the Jets games.
Yeah, that was part of the contractual agreement for the Jets that if they were taken off an FM station, they have the right to pull out from their deal. So that was going to happen one way or the other. This, on the other hand, the Mets, which are on 880, are going to stay there regardless. And you're probably wondering, wait, the Mets are going to be on ESPN? The quickest way I can say it is because it's still technically Odyssey's property. They can put the Mets games on there. That's the quickest way I can explain it. So the Mets games are going to be on there. No more news. It stinks. They were an iconic station for 57 years. But the news cycle no longer, for sports or for regular news, is no longer a radio environment. And I've said this, you've heard me say this for a long time, where unfortunately we're moving to a digital world. That's what we're doing with these podcasts. Like, I remember when we started these podcasts, we were using that Google recording software. Remember, we were, and it kept freezing all over the place, and it was a nightmare. And I had to re-edit it, and it was all nonsense.
Well, Nick, the other thing is, and the reason they've been giving it about why the shutdown happened, to I think answer your question, was because of redundancy. Because they also own 1010 Wins, which actually does make more money than CBS.
I mean, you feel bad for some of those guys. They've been around for decades. And they didn't even move them to 1010 Wins. They basically said, adios, your jobs are gone. Like, you feel bad for those people.
Welcome to the media biz in 2024.
And again, I'm not naive to that fact. That's why, we're trying to build something on our own, and we're slowly trying to improve numbers and grow it, monetize it, so that when we get to a place on our own, we can't be fired. It's our own product, for crying out loud. So it's unfortunate. You and I will always remember it, but people who are younger are never going to know what that really is or what that operation really brought to at least what we grew up to know as radio, news, and sports in that regard. But that'll do it for this episode, episode 247. Make sure you like and subscribe, youtube.com/ETB Network, to find this show and all our shows that are involved, as we are, I think, 2 or 3 followers as of this recording to 870. So please like and subscribe. If you can't watch the video side, make sure you go and listen wherever you get your podcasts. So that's pretty much it. Obviously, we are presented by Playback. Also, we are working on some Playback streams. Hopefully, NFL and college football get cleared so we can do that. And I don't know. Anything else? Any more housekeeping I need, or no?
Stay tuned to social media. It's important to follow us on social media, because we have some network scheduling that's going to be moving around. So, to be determined when 248 and future episodes will air in terms of what day of the week and time slot and all that.
Yeah. So because we want to get you more streams. That we're working with our partners to grow and do these streams. We got to get those into, and there's some fun things along the way that we could do with these live streams on Playback. So we want to do more of them. On top of, we want to get you a college football show. We want to get you an NFL show. We have the football season. I'll just say it quickly, full disclosure, and you probably agreed to, it's our busiest time of the year is the football content. So we're doing our best to get you as much content as we possibly can, but we got to work on scheduling. So TBD on all that stuff for scheduling. And when we find out, we will tell you. So for Tom Albano, I'm Nick Morgasen. This has been episode 247. We will see you next week at some point for episode 248 when we know. Good night, everybody.